Chapter 5082. Later, Sun Yunzi successfully refined the Python Dragon Pill. Relying on the Python Dragon Pill and the 9 Transformations Golden Pill technique, Fairy Ingzhua stepped into the Severed Spirit stage and became one of the few Grandmasters in Qi. But just when Fairy Ingzhua was happy, Dong Shanyi took advantage of the fact that her profound Qi had not recovered and used a secret technique to possess her body. Dong Shanyi had thought that by abandoning her werewolf form and using the body of a human divinity separating stage cultivator, the backlash from the Green Seal script would be eliminated. However, after 100 years, she discovered that the backlash from before had reappeared. Only now did she understand that the backlash from the Green Seal text was not only the body, but also the soul. Since this was the case, for Dong Shanyi, who was born in the demon race, Goddess Xianwan's body was 100 times stronger than that of an ordinary human cultivator. Therefore, Dong Shanyi abandoned her earlier plan and prepared to use Xianwan's body for herself. But fortunately, Fairy Ingzhua was a severed spirit stage cultivator. This human body was brand new and could last for 1,000 years. Therefore, Dong Shanyi did not attack Xianwan in these 600 years. Fairy Ingzhua, who killed Shang Huaming, was possessed by Dong Shanyi and died silently. The other murderer, Reverend Lu Ni of the Seven Skills sect, also received his retribution. The Seven Skills sect was originally a refining sect, and the sect's founder left behind countless magic treasures. Among the 3 late nascent soul stage cultivators, Reverend Lu Ni was the most well-prepared. During the tribulation, his magic treasures were packed to the teeth. But even so, Reverend Lu Ni could not withstand the lightning strike and was killed by the lightning. Even his primordial spirit did not escape and his soul was scattered. Up until now, only Sun Yunzi of the Splendid sect had safely passed through the lightning tribulation. According to the customs of the 3 cultivation nations of the Dawn Rain continent, he had passed the position of sect master of the Splendid sect to someone else and became a carefree Grand Supreme Elder. Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a rare ruthlessness. He said indifferently, "Good will be rewarded with good and evil will be punished with evil. It's not that the time has not come yet. When the time comes, those who have hatred will take revenge. And now, it's time for Sun Yunzi to die." Xiao Hua looked at Dong Shanyi, his tone was still calm. Previously, this old man already said, "This old man will not forgive you. However, I won't kill you as you think. Killing you is too easy, and you definitely won't learn your lesson. This old man will imprison you and make you suffer the backlash of the forbidden power day and night." As he spoke, Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed. A green light entered Dong Shanyi's body. Dong Shanyi still turned into Fairy Ingzhua's appearance and sat on the ground calmly. Spiritual master, spiritual master. Seeing that he couldn't use his Dharma power, forbidden power, or even demonic power, Dong Shanyi panicked and shouted, "Please have mercy and kill me. I really don't want to live in this world." Xiao Hua ignored her. The Kunlun mirror in his hand shook, and Huang Tong flew out from within. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "I'll have to trouble you, fellow Taoist, to imprison this wolf race with that little snow wolf." "Sure." Huang Tong didn't decline. With a wave of her sharp claws, she grabbed Dong Shanyi and spread her wings, tearing the void apart and leaving. Seeing that there was no one left, Xiao Hua asked Yuanya, "Are you going back to Shenhua continent to cultivate, or are you going to walk around Xiaoyu continent with me?" Yuanya smiled and said, is gone. My Tao heart is a little unstable, and without her holy power, I'll be in danger refining the bone spear. It's better for me to stay by Master's side." Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Yuanya looked around and said, "Besides, Lu Yi and the others aren't by Master's side. Master is a supreme being of the human race, and there's no reason for him to do anything. I'll stay by Master's side and serve him." Xiao Hua said curiously, "Why are you talking so much?" Dai once said that silence is golden, but when it's time to speak, you still have to speak. Otherwise, others won't know what you're thinking." Yuanya replied, "So, what I just said is what I think." Good. Auspicious clouds appeared under Xiao Hua's feet, and he slowly flew up and praised, There's a saying in the human race's Confucian cultivators that a woman is an academy, and a good woman can make a man more outstanding. Yeah, you're blessed. Yes, master. Yuanya put away his bone spear and respectfully flew behind Xiaohua. This disciple will definitely go to the heavenly fortune palace to marry Dai. Xiaohua smiled and flew aimlessly for a while, then suddenly stopped and turned to look in the direction of Sky Patrol City. Master? Yuanya naturally knew that direction was Sky Patrol City and hurriedly asked, "Are you going to Sky Patrol City?" "Forget it." Xiaohua shook his head and said, "Sky Patrol City is now the territory of sword cultivators, and Master has no karma with sword cultivators. Why would I go there?" "Then where are we going?" Yuanya asked. Xiaohua looked in a direction and answered firmly, "The place of origin, the place where the fortune gate takes root." "Okay." Yuanya replied and left with Xiaohua. Just as Xiaohua turned around, Sky Patrol City, which was like a monster in the sky, suddenly shone brightly, and a city gate that was closed in the wind and snow opened with a roar. Inside the city gate, tens of thousands of flying swords rushed out in a mighty manner, forming a bridge that was several miles long in the night sky, reaching far into the darkness. At the end of the bridge, a handsome young man with a graceful temperament and a serene expression slowly stepped out of the city gate, dressed in a white robe. A faint halo appeared on the robe, reflecting the young man's jade-like face, and under the robe, the light purple sword robe made the young man look even sharper. Behind the young man was a late-stage gold core cultivator. This cultivator was dressed in a Taoist robe, and he also looked young. There was a smile on his face, and there was clearly a kind of respect on his face. As these two people walked out of the city gate, two female foundation establishment cultivators led more than 10 handsome men and beautiful women who were in the Qi refinement realm. They held magic tools that looked like lanterns in their hands and quietly rushed out, then they stood neatly on both sides of the city gate. The brilliance on the magic tools flashed with 9 colors, driving away the nearby darkness. The young man glanced at the night, then looked at the trembling flying sword under his feet, and frowned slightly. "Xiao Mao, although this is Sky Patrol City and not Enlightenment Mountain Manor. But such a welcome. Isn't it too stingy? Don't let others look down on you." When Xiao Mao heard this, he humbly replied, "Young master, some people like vanity, some people like peace, some people like power, and some people like pampering. Young master, you have to cater to their preferences. Tonight, young master, you have to be as grand as when you welcomed Vice Alliance leader Luo. Maybe that person will avoid you at first sight, and all of young master's plans will be in vain." The young man who was called young master nodded slightly and smiled, "Then I'll listen to you today. As long as that person enters Sky Patrol City, no matter what the outcome is, I'll get someone to help you conceive a baby." Xiao Mao was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. "Thank you for your kindness, young master." While they were talking, there was the sound of a sword, and a small sword swept over their heads and flew into Sky Patrol City. Then, a voice sounded from the city, "Young Master Yi, the person you've been waiting for is here." Thank you, General, for asking the patrolling swordsman to let them in." Young Master Yi shouted with a smile. "Yes, sir." Someone in the city responded, and another small sword that sent a message rushed into the night sky like a meteor. "Young Master." Xiao Mao raised his hand and said, "I'll accompany young master to welcome them." But the young man nodded. Sword light appeared under his feet as he stepped on the bridge and flew into the night sky. When Xiao Mao followed, the other low-level disciples did not dare to delay. Like Xiao Mao, they did not step on the bridge. Instead, they urged their bodies to fly behind. After half a cup of tea's time, they saw a red light in the distant night sky. When they flew closer, they could see clearly that it was a flying boat that looked like a bird. There were several Taoist cultivators standing on the flying boat, and the one in front was a female nascent soul cultivator. She was as beautiful as a fairy, and her thin lips carried a faint smile. Not to mention her snow-white skin and peach-red Taoist robe, which gave birth to an unparalleled beauty in the dark night. Just the green bean-sized beauty mole at the corner of her mouth and her jade-like cheeks were enough to give birth to an indescribable wildness. Wasn't this female cultivator Fairy Hongxia? The cultivators behind Fairy Hongxia were not worth mentioning. Most of them were in the Foundation Establishment realm, and only one of them was in the early-stage Golden Core realm. The young man's gaze fell on Fairy Hongxia's beautiful face, and two balls of flames suddenly appeared in his originally calm eyes. It was just that the flames were fleeting and not obvious. As the flying boat flew closer, they heard the bridge. Fairy Hongxia did not fly out from the flying boat, but looked at Xiao Mao and frowned. "Junior brother Xiao, I'm here. I'm Yi Shixiang. Greetings to Fairy Hongxia." The young man smiled and hurriedly bowed. "I've long heard of Fairy Hongxia's great name and have always wanted to meet you. Unfortunately, there was a barrier between sword cultivators and Dao cultivators, so I never had the chance. Now that I've finally met Fairy Hongxia, I'm sure you live up to your reputation. In the 3 kingdoms of cultivation, I'm afraid there's no other woman as outstanding as Fairy Hongxia." "I don't dare." Fairy Hongxia saw that although the young man looked young, his cultivation had already reached 2nd grade sword transformation realm. She did not dare to slight him and hurriedly bowed in return. "I'm nothing but an undeserved reputation. After cultivating bitterly for close to 1,000 years, I'm still an early-stage nascent soul realm cultivator. How can I compare to you? You look young, but you're already a 2nd grade sword transformation realm cultivator." "Hee, I'm the one whose undeserved reputation." Yi Shixiang hurriedly said humbly, "My aptitude cannot be compared to Fairy Hongxia's. If I wasn't the young master of the Yi clan and was born with the convenience of cultivation, I'm afraid I wouldn't even be a sword transformation realm cultivator." "It's indeed young Master Yi." When Fairy Hongxia heard this, her face revealed a smile that resembled an epiphyllum. She said, "I've received Junior Brother Zhao's message saying that the Yi clan has the intention to form an alliance with my Kai clan. I'm a little surprised. My Kai clan is not well known in the country of Shi. I wonder why the Yi clan would want to form an alliance with my Kai clan. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all forms of support." Chapter 5083. Fairy is indeed a competent patriarch. You haven't even said a few words and you've already brought up the family's matters. I really admire you." Yi Shixiang laughed and said, "Compared to Fairy, this one is much more lazy. If it wasn't for Xiao Mao saying that the world situation has changed greatly and that us aristocratic families need to adapt to the trend and form many alliances, this one wouldn't even remember to do something for the clan. Therefore, I'm very concerned about the alliance between the Yi family and Kai family. In order to not cause Fairy to misunderstand, I've specially chosen Sentry City as the location for the discussion. I wonder if Fairy is satisfied?" Fairy Hongxia looked at Sentry City on the other side of the bridge and replied neither haughtily nor humbly, "As long as there's sincerity, anywhere is fine." Good. Yi Shixiang clapped his hands and said, "With Fairy's words, I'm relieved. I can finally do something for my Yi family. Thank you, Fairy, for your help. Fairy, please." Fairy Hongxia flew down from the flying boat and nodded at Xiao Mao. Xiao Mao originally wanted to go up and greet her, but when he saw Fairy Hongxia land on the bridge, he hurriedly stopped and bowed in midair. "Little brother greets senior sister." Fairy Hongxia raised her hand to signal Xiao Mao to get up and asked, "How have you been recently?" "I'm all right." Xiao Mao smiled bitterly. "Other than not having a baby, everything is fine." Fairy Hongxia smiled. "Not all of one's pursuits are cultivation. If you only think about having a baby, you might not be able to have one. Moreover, your foundation is excellent. If you don't walk the path of having a baby, you can consider other methods." "Sigh, senior sister." Xiao Mao replied with a sullen face. "Little brother is a cultivator. What else can I do if I don't cultivate? If I don't walk the path of having a baby, do I have to walk the path of transforming into a sword? Forget it." Fairy Hongxia didn't have much experience and couldn't answer him. She shook her head and said, "I'm just an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. I can't give you more pointers." At this point, Fairy Hongxia smiled at Yi Shixiang and said, "Young Master Yi, if the alliance between the Kai family and the Yi family succeeds, Xiao Mao will be a great contributor. The Yi family can't treat Xiao Mao unfairly. Fairy, don't worry. Yi Shixiang hastily nodded. Fairy might not know the details of my Yi clan right now, but Fairy will understand in the future. My Yi clan's foundation isn't something that ordinary aristocratic families can compare to, so my Yi clan will absolutely not treat anyone who helps my Yi clan unfairly. All right, young master, please. Fairy Hong Xia raised her hand to indicate for Yi Shixiang to go first. Yi Shixiang smiled and stopped being courteous. He activated his sword light and stepped onto the bridge to fly towards Sentry City. Fairy Hong Xia frowned as she looked at the bridge beneath her feet. She then looked at Xiao Mao and the rest who were standing respectfully at the side, not daring to approach. She turned her head and instructed, "All of you, keep the flying boat and follow Xiao Mao over." "Yes, Patriarch." A few cultivators responded and alighted from the flying boat. They all came over to greet Xiao Mao. Judging from the expressions on their faces, they seemed to be very familiar with him. As Fairy Hong Xia flew past, the bridge flew like a colorful sparrow and slowly retracted. When Yi Shixiang accompanied Fairy Hong Xia into Sky Patrol City, the bridge also fell into Sky Patrol City. The city gates were closed, the light was extinguished, and the night was deep. The wind was violent, the snow was heavy, and the storm in the sky was brewing to strike. Xiao Huan naturally did not know that he had already missed the opportunity to meet Fairy Hong Xia. He brought Yuanya and flew away. The snowflakes gradually lessened, and the first rays of the morning sun had also arrived. Xiao Hua loved the moment when the sun first rose. At that moment, everything between heaven and earth seemed to be brand new. Moreover, as he flew, the rays of light were born everywhere. Every ray of light was filled with joy and warmth of welcome. Xiao Hua was looking at the foothills in the distance, wanting to say something to Yuanya. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and looked into the distance with some surprise. He said curiously, "It's really strange. Why are they together again?" "Master?" Yuanya smiled. "Could it be that you've met an acquaintance again?" "That's right." Xiao Hua looked in that direction with a smile. "This Dawn Rain continent is where I used to cultivate. I even participated in an extremely famous sword Dao battle here, so I know a lot of cultivators. Look, I've met a few more while flying. It's just that I'm a little hesitant. Should I go down and meet them or stay here and watch the situation develop?" "Disciple will follow wherever master goes." Yuanya didn't have any good suggestions and only answered casually, "Let's go down." Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, "However, I want to hide my cultivation and test some people's reactions. I can also settle some karma while I'm at it." "All right," Yuanya said and used the Fortune Gate's secret technique to suppress his cultivation to the nascent soul realm. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Nascent soul realm cultivators are masters on the Dawn Rain continent. With your cultivation, who else can I test?" Unfortunately, Yuanya also smiled bitterly and said, "Master, this is the lowest level disciple can suppress. Why don't you seal disciples' cultivation first?" "It seems like that's the only way." Xiao Hua smiled slightly. His hands moved and several seals entered Yuanya's body, suppressing Yuanya's cultivation from the verge of 8th grade to early gold core realm. "Ha!" Xiao Hua looked around and said with a smile, "There's no other way. Only gold core realm cultivators can be master's disciple." While he was speaking, Xiao Hua's cultivation also fell rapidly. It fell to early nascent soul realm before it stopped. "Master?" Yuanya curled his lips and said, "Your acquaintance is actually a nascent soul realm cultivator? This kind of cultivator, do you still want to test him?" Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and said, "Because this involves a person's life and death. Master can't not treat this seriously. Let's go. I hope this person can change a little in these few hundred years." Yuanya followed Xiao Hua and flew towards the east. After a meal, he saw a flying boat flying out of the morning sun. There were 3 cultivators standing on the flying boat. Xiao Hua stopped in midair and saw the flying boat getting closer and closer. Although he had already seen the people coming with his divine sense, when he saw them with his eyes, the corners of his eyes couldn't help but moisten. At the bow of the flying boat was a white-haired late Gold Core realm old man. This old man's face was full of wrinkles and he looked quite old. However, standing on the flying boat, he was still as straight as a rock. Behind the old man was a beautiful woman. She looked to be in her 20s, but her cultivation was also in the middle Gold Core realm. As for the cultivator steering the boat, he was only in the foundation establishment realm. The flying boat glided through the air lightly, raising a beautiful arc. The old man's eyes were a little blurred. He swept past the mountain ridge on the left and didn't see Xiao Hua stopping in midair. On the contrary, the woman was looking in another direction. However, the moment Xiao Hua stopped, she suddenly turned her head and saw Xiao Hua's smiling face. But what was strange was that when the woman saw Xiao Hua, it was as if she didn't see him. She only slightly raised the corner of her mouth and a bitter smile appeared in her eyes. Then she looked in another direction. However, right when the woman's bright eyes were moving about, she suddenly came to an understanding and hurriedly looked at Xiao Hua again. When her gaze descended into Xiao Hua's slightly red eyes, the woman's eyes suddenly dilated while absolute wild joy surged into her heart. The woman couldn't help but raise her hands to cover her mouth, and then 2 streams of tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. Xiao Hua! The woman was almost moaning and almost roaring. She barely managed to squeeze Xiao Hua's name from her heart into her mouth. Oh! The old man in the lead was startled. He withdrew his sad gaze and whispered, "What's wrong?" Xiao Hua! The woman bit her lips so hard that they turned white. She stared at Xiao Hua and pointed at him as she spoke hatefully. Xiao Hua! Only then did the old man look in the direction Sun Shu was pointing at. At this moment, Xiao Hua had already flown over. He bowed from afar and said, "Martial Uncle Zhen Qing, hello." Xiao Hua, you are really Xiao Hua? Zhen Qing was obviously very surprised. He looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief as if he didn't dare to recognize him. However, in just a few breaths, Zhen Qing's figure flashed and actually flew out from the flying boat. He rushed in front of Xiao Hua and scolded, "Child, where have you been all these years?" Martial uncle? Zhen Qing was the first disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect that Xiao Hua saw after returning to the Dawn Rain continent. Zhen Qing's words immediately pulled out the memories from a long time ago from the depths of his mind. He couldn't hold it in anymore and called out, "Martial uncle," as tears rolled down his face. "It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back." Zhen Qing's tears also fell. He patted Xiao Hua's shoulder and said, "It's good that you're back alive. Don't cry." "Yes, disciple understands." Xiao Hua sniffed. It really felt like he had returned to the time when he was a low-level disciple. He replied in a low voice, "Senior martial brother." Sun Shu naturally had also flown over. At this time, he stopped crying. His pair of red eyes were like a rabbit's as he stared at Xiao Hua, afraid that he would suddenly disappear again. He only called out, "Senior martial brother," before his mouth was blocked by the excitement of meeting again after a long time. He couldn't say another word. Junior Zhen Yu greets martial uncle. The Foundation establishment disciple kept the flying boat and stood at the side. Although he didn't know Xiao Hua's cultivation level, he hurriedly took the opportunity to bow and greet him after hearing Zhen Qing and Sun Shu's greeting. He quickly get up. There's no need to be polite. Xiao Hua sniffed again and raised his hand to help Zhen Yu up. He said, "This Xiao hasn't seen a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect for a long time. I can't help but forget myself." Yes. Zhen Yu smiled and said, "It's always like this when meeting after a long time." Then, Zhen Yu looked at Yuan Ye, who was behind Xiao Hua, and bowed, "Martial uncle? Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and..." Chapter 5084. Yuan Ye clearly didn't know how to address this little Foundation establishment cultivator. He could only raise his hand to help Zhen Yu up and said indifferently, "This? Get up." Zhen Qing and Sun Shu naturally only had Xiao Hua in their eyes. Now that they heard Zhen Yu mention him, they finally noticed Yuan Ye. Zhen Qing hurriedly smiled and said, "May I know how to address this fellow Taoist?" This. Xiao Hua was a bit embarrassed. He regretted that he didn't introduce Yuanya earlier. He coughed and said, "Martial uncle, this is Junior's disciple. His name is Yuanya." Zhen Qing and Sun Shu weren't particularly surprised, but Zhen Yu was shocked. He unconsciously glanced at Xiao Hua again. Suddenly, he seemed to have realized something and exclaimed, "You, Xiao Hua, Taoist Xiao?" After saying that, Zhen Yu disregarded everything and knelt down in the air. He kowtowed and said, "Junior Zhen Yu greets Taoist Xiao." Hearing Zhen Yu call him Taoist Xiao, Xiao Hua immediately understood. He smiled and helped Zhen Yu up. "Get up. I'm also an ordinary cultivator. I'm not as noble as you think I am. Taoist Xiao, Taoist Xiao." Zhen Yu was clearly very excited. He even talked a bit too much. Although he had already gotten up, he still said, "You don't know. Ever since I was born, I've always heard about Taoist Xiao from my father. If it wasn't for Taoist Xiao, nearly 2,000 people in the Jade Cloud Ridge would have starved to death." Seeing that Zhen Yu was going to be long-winded, Xiao Hua hurriedly said, "Zhen Yu, this is something from many years ago." "Yes, it's been many years. However, according to what this humble one knows, until now, the grains used in the vicinity of the Jade Cloud Ridge were still bestowed by Reverend Xiao back then." Zhen Yu continued speaking persistently. However, when he reached this point, he saw Zhen Qing frowning slightly. He hurriedly stopped speaking and said with a smile, "This humble one will stop speaking. This humble one is truly too excited. This humble one has finally met Reverend Xiao, whom this humble one has been praying for day and night." After Zhen Yu retreated to the side, Zhen Qing said with a bitter smile, "Xiao Hua, I was so happy to see you that I forgot that you were already a nascent soul cultivator when you left the Imperial Thunder sect. This poor Taoist should be calling you senior now." "Martial uncle, your words are too much for this junior." Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand and said, "I'm well aware of how you treat me. Not to mention my current cultivation base, even if I reach the Grand Ascension stage, I'm still a junior in front of you." "Sai, forget it. Do as you wish." Zhen Qing sighed and said, "This old man's lifespan is about to end. You can call me whatever you want." "Sai, that's right. Senior's luck is a little bad." Xiao Hua looked at Zhen Qing and felt a little helpless. When Xiao Hua entered the Imperial Thunder sect, Zhen Qing was already an early gold core cultivator. It had already been more than 600 years, but Zhen Qing was still only a late gold core cultivator. Now, looking at her lifespan, she only had a few years left. It was really impossible for her to have a baby in this lifetime. Soon after, Xiao Hua looked at Sun Shu. Sun Shu was already at the middle gold core stage. It seemed that his progress in the past few hundred years had been smooth. However, in front of Zhen Qing, Xiao Hua didn't say anything. Sun Shu only nodded at Xiao Hua. With Zhen Yu's interruption, Yuanya didn't greet him. Xiao Hua didn't mention it again. He just smiled and asked, "Martial uncle, where are you going? It doesn't seem like you're going to the Imperial Thunder sect." Zhen Qing replied, "Sai, why should I go back to the Imperial Thunder sect? This old man is going to the Blazing Fire Mountain." "Blazing Fire Mountain?" Xiao Hua was slightly stunned and asked curiously, "Why is Martial uncle going to the Blazing Fire Mountain?" "It's a long story." Zhen Qing smiled bitterly and said, "This old man was originally traveling outside and wanted to see if I could find an opportunity during the last period of time. However, after a few years, I received a message from the sect, asking all the disciples to return to the sect for training. However, just as this old man was about to return to the sect, I received a message from Hall Master Zhen Sheng, asking this old man to take a few disciples to the Blazing Fire Mountain on his behalf. He said that he was returning a favor for him." In the end, Martial Uncle Zhen Qing intercepted I and Zhen Yu on the way and brought us to the Blazing Fire Mountain. Sun Shu smiled like a flower and said, "As for why we are going to the Blazing Fire Mountain, we don't know. We only know that when we are near the Blazing Fire Mountain, we will release a messaging talisman and someone called the Fire Qilin will come and pick us up." Hearing about the Blazing Fire Mountain and the Fire Qilin, Xiao Hua seemed to understand something. He thought for a while and said with a smile, Martial Uncle, although Hall Master Zhen Xing didn't say it clearly in the message, I think Martial Uncle should know something about it, right? Sai, what else can it be? Zhen Qing sighed and said, since the last Sword Dao War, the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain died in the Sky Patrol City. The Blazing Fire Mountain was divided into 3 factions. They fought with each other to snatch spirit stones and other things. In the past few hundred years, countless people have died. The Blazing Fire Mountain has now become an ordinary sect. I also know about the Fire Qilin. He is the grandson of one of the 3 branches of the Blazing Fire Mountain. Previously, he was not conspicuous and was doted on by the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain. Later, those who were more senior than him died, and his branch recommended him. If I'm not wrong, this time, he is going to mediate and help. Hall Master Zhen is now a middle nascent soul grandmaster and represents the Shaolei Hall of the Imperial Thunder Sect. It's not appropriate for him to be involved in this matter, so I am going to do it. Sun Shu said with a smile, the current Blazing Fire Mountain is no longer the same as before. Cultivators in the late Gold Core realm are rare. Martial Uncle Zhen is enough. Sun Shu looked at Xiao Hua and said in a low voice, not long after Martial Brother was expelled from the Imperial Thunder Sect, the former sect master Qian Lei Zi came out of seclusion. Former sect master? Xiao Hua was stunned and asked curiously, isn't Qian Lei Zi the sect master now? Sun Shu nodded and said, yes. When Martial Brother left the Imperial Thunder Sect, Senior Qian Lei Zi had entered the late nascent soul realm. About 70 years ago, Senior Qian Lei Zi failed to break through to the severed divinity realm and died. Now, the middle nascent soul realm fairy Xianhua is the sect master. Sun Shu hesitated because fairy Xianhua was the one who expelled Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect. He was afraid that Xiao Hua would bear a grudge. Sure enough, hearing that fairy Xianhua was the sect master, Xiao Hua sneered. Seeing Xiao Hua's reaction, Sun Shu hurriedly said, Martial Brother, I don't know where you have been for the past several hundred years. However, Senior Qian Lei Zi had just come out of seclusion and issued a pardon order, asking Thunder Meng Dao Master to chase after you with the pardon order. He wanted to take you back into the sect, but Thunder Meng Dao Master couldn't find you. As for the specific situation, I'm afraid only Senior Nascent Soul Realm knows. However, Martial Brother, the current Imperial Thunder Sect, has declined. You are so powerful, and there are fortune gates all over the 3 countries. I think you should return to the Imperial Thunder Sect. If Master Qian Lei Zi was still the sect master, or if Reverend Lei Meng was still the sect master, Xiao Hua might have considered Sun Shu's suggestion. However, after hearing that fairy Xianhua had become the sect master, how could Xiao Hua still return to Imperial Thunder Sect? He smiled and said, Martial Brother has just returned. I want to see an old friend and reminisce about the past. Let's talk about this later. All right. Sun Shu also understood that spilled water couldn't be undone. He forced a smile and said, where is Martial Brother going? I will send Martial Brother off. Oh, I don't have a fixed place. Xiao Hua smiled and said, it's just that I haven't seen the scenery of the state of Shi for a long time. Hee, that's great. Sun Shu pursed his lips and said, if Martial Brother has nothing to do, why don't you take a trip to the Ardent Fire Mountain with Martial Uncle Zhen Qing? With Martial Brother there, we can be at ease. Hearing this, Zhen Qing's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, good. Come with this old man. Several hundred years have passed. Perhaps not many people can remember the mysterious nameless sword battle. However, you were already a nascent soul realm cultivator at that time. I'm afraid you are even more powerful now. You can give this old man some courage. Alright. Xiao Hua nodded and said, Junior has nothing to do anyway. I'll accompany Martial Uncle. That's right. Zhen Qing pulled Xiao Hua's robe and ordered Zhen Yu to release the flying boat. He said, in a few years, even if you want to accompany this old man, I'm afraid you won't be able to find me. Sun Shu's face was also full of smiles. He turned to look at Yuanya and said, Yuanya, what's your master's cultivation now? Late nascent soul realm? This. Yuanya rubbed his nose and thought for a moment before saying, Martial uncle, you should ask master about this matter. Sun Shu smiled and said, senior brother likes to keep a low profile. From what you said, even if he isn't late nascent soul realm, I'm afraid he isn't far from it. No wonder he doesn't want to return to Imperial Thunder Sect. Oh, right, you can just call me Sun Shu. I call you senior brother because we used to be senior brother and junior sister. I'm used to calling you that. You and I are both Golden Core Realm cultivators. You can just call me fellow Taoist. Alright. Yuan Ye didn't stand on ceremony and nodded in agreement. Seeing that everyone had boarded the flying boat, Jianghu shouted and urged the flying boat to continue flying in the direction of Ardent Fire Mountain. Xiaohua stood beside Zhen Qing. He stole a glance at Zhen Qing's white hair and asked in a low voice, Martial Uncle, Junior remembers that when I left Imperial Thunder Sect, didn't I tell Martial Uncle about Sun Qian? But, alas, it's all in the past. It's meaningless to mention it again. Zhen Qing's wrinkled face showed bitterness. He waved his hand to stop Xiaohua from continuing. He asked again, but you, where have you been for the past few hundred years? Looking at your cultivation, it seems to be even more powerful than before. Oh, not to mention you, even this disciple of yours is more powerful than this old man. Junior obtained a little opportunity. Xiaohua replied, now, I'm indeed more powerful than before, but, in other words, they had reached here. Woo-woo. The sound of wind whistling could be heard in the distant sky. Soon after, the pressure of an early nascent soul stage cultivator surged out like a gale and swept towards the flying boat. Wherever the pressure passed, rocks were overturned and trees were toppled. The brilliance of the flying boat was also rapidly extinguished. Zhen Qing, Sun Shu, and Jianghu naturally couldn't resist the aura. Jianghu collapsed on the flying boat and let it roll over. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Chapter 5085. Who is it? Xiaohua pretended to roar and released his spiritual pressure. The two spiritual pressures collided with each other. Bang, bang, bang. A series of explosions sounded and ripples appeared in the void nearby. Xiaohua then used his magic power again to stabilize the flying boat. With Xiaohua's spiritual pressure resisting, Zhen Qing and Sun Shu struggled to stand up. They looked at the sky and saw another flying boat. There were more than 10 people standing on the flying boat. In the front were a male and female early nascent soul stage cultivators. The male cultivator was middle-aged and wore armor. He held a spear-like magic treasure in his hand. As for the female cultivator, she was only in her 20s. She was as beautiful as a flower. Her big watery eyes were looking at Xiaohua and Zhen Qing with surprise and disdain on her face. Wasn't this female cultivator Qin Yi of Buried Flower Manor? Seeing Qin Yi appear, Zhen Qing was a bit angry. He raised his hand and pointed at her. Qin Yi, what are you doing? I already told you that I don't want to see you again in this life. Chen Yi glanced at Zhen Qing indifferently and said, Zhen Qing, the past is the past. There's no need to mention it again. To be honest, I didn't expect to meet you here today. But since we've already met, then why don't we settle our grudges here? It seems that us also includes me? Xiaohua looked at Chen Yi and said coldly, I wonder what grudges you have with me? Ha! Chen Yi laughed and withdrew the pressure of an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. She looked even more beautiful after being pregnant. She laughed and said, there are so many people in this world who think too highly of themselves. You are the famous Taoist Xiao of Dawn Rain Continent, but in the eyes of my Tongmu city, you are nothing. The grudges between you and me, don't you know? Now that you've walked into the trap, everything that happened before, let's settle it today. At this point, Chen Yi looked into the distance and shouted, Bitch, why don't you come out? Do you want me to capture you personally before you show yourself? Zhen Qing heard and felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly looked in that direction. Sure enough, a faint brilliance flashed in the distant sky. Sun Qian, who had a slightly elegant temperament and a stubborn look, appeared. At this time, Sun Qian was only in her 30s. There were no more scars on her face. She had a noble and pure temperament and had a unique charm. Seeing Sun Qian appear, Zhen Qing hurriedly shouted, "You? Why are you here? Why aren't you running?" Alas! Sun Qian let out a long sigh as she looked at Zhen Qing with a complicated expression. After that, she flew in front of Zhen Qing and stood in front of Zhen Qing. Facing Chen Yi, Sun Qian said coldly, "Chen Yi, actually, the thing between you and Zhen Qing is nothing serious. You only need to tell Qing Liuzi the details. Damn it." Without waiting for Sun Qian to finish speaking, Chen Yi cursed in a low voice, "Sun Qian, you dare to plant spies in Tongmu City." It was as if Sun Qian was not facing a nascent soul cultivator. She said coldly, "If I didn't, how would I know that you wanted to kill Zhen Qing to avoid suspicion?" Ah! Chen Yi's face suddenly changed. She laughed and said, "Sun Qian, is your informant Jing Chong?" Suddenly, Sun Qian seemed to realize something. She raised her hand and pointed at Sun Qian. "You're too cunning. You're killing 3 birds with 1 stone. You want to kill Zhen Qing, Jing Chong and me at the same time?" Hee hee. Chen Yi smiled and nodded. "Sun Qian, you've been fighting with me for a lifetime. But now, your last sentence is the most correct. I wanted to praise you, but I didn't expect Taoist Master Shao to walk into the trap. My plan of killing 3 birds with 1 stone has become killing 4 birds with 1 stone. You're still wrong." AI Zhen Qing. Hearing this, Sun Qian turned her head slightly. Looking at Zhen Qing's white hair, she smiled bitterly. "It's all my fault. If I just backed off a little and sent you a message. There's no need for that." Zhen Qing looked at the dozen cultivators on the Twilight Tong City's flying boats surrounding them. The early-stage nascent soul-stage male cultivator stood beside Chen Yi with a spear magic artifact in his hand. The fear in her heart gradually disappeared and she said faintly, "I don't have much time left to live. Today I was able to see her true face. This trip was not in vain." Sun Qian looked at Zhen Qing. She bit her lips and said word by word, "Being able to die with you, this life of mine was not made in vain." Chen Yi's face twisted. It was as if she couldn't bear to see others get better. She smiled maliciously and said, "Then all of you can die together." After saying this, Chen Yi raised her hand and was about to give the order. Sun Qian held Zhen Qing's hand. She looked at Xiao Hua apologetically and said, "Taoist Master Xiao, I didn't thank you back then. Today, I've implicated you. I can only say sorry." It's fine. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "My matter is really nothing. The matter between you and Martial Uncle Zhen is more important. Previously, I wanted to ask you what you've been thinking for the past hundreds of years. Why did you waste hundreds of years? But now that I see that you're willing to live and die with Martial Uncle Zhen, I feel that, as long as there's true love, as long as we know each other, there's no need to care about time." At this point, Xiao Hua looked coldly at Chen Yi and said, "Unlike some people who have long abandoned their human emotions. For power, they sold their soul and body." Ah! Chen Yi looked at Xiao Hua and laughed loudly. "Taoist Master Xiao, so what if I sold my soul and body? Look at the 2 of them. In the past, their cultivation was higher than mine. But now, they're only golden core stage cultivators. Each of them is struggling at death's door, waiting for the end of their lifespans. As for me, I've already become a nascent soul stage cultivator. When their corpses turn into ashes, I'll still be living freely in Twilight Tong City." Yes, you seem to be living freely, but in reality? Whether you're a walking corpse or not. I'm afraid only you know, right? Xiao Hua mocked. The corner of Chen Yi's mouth curled up in disdain as she said, "Xiao Hua, don't flaunt your sharp tongue. No matter how fierce your words are, you won't be able to escape today's calamity." Xiao Hua was shocked. "How did I offend you? You actually want to take my life? Taoist Master Xiao, why are you pretending to be confused?" Chen Yi sneered. "Do you know how powerful the Fortune Gate is in the 3 countries? Everyone respects you, Taoist Master Xiao. If my Twilight Tong City captures the real Taoist Master Xiao, then wouldn't the Fortune Gate of the 3 countries be controlled by my Twilight Tong City? Do you think I'll cooperate with you?" Xiao Hua said sarcastically. The corner of Chen Yi's mouth twitched, and she said decisively, If you don't cooperate, then die. A dead Taoist master Shao naturally can't compare to a living Taoist master Shao. However, a fortune gate controlled by someone is the biggest threat to my Twilight Tong city. With that said, Chen Yi didn't delay any longer, and she ordered, Taoist I Ching, you and I will work together to capture Shao Hua. Disciples, kill everyone else. Don't let anyone else know about this. Several disciples answered in unison. They circulated their magic power and charged toward Shao Hua. AI. Shao Hua sighed helplessly as he looked at the group of Twilight Tong City's disciples and Chen Yi. He said, it's easy to change mountains and rivers, but it's hard to change one's nature. Even 600 years is not enough to fill a person's greed. Since greed is hard to fill, then there's no need to fill it. You do it. Shao Hua pointed his finger at Yuan Ye, and a shadow of light fell into Yuan Ye's body. Kacha! A thunderous sound came from Yuan Ye's body. Chen Yi had already discovered Zhen Qing and Sun Chen's presence, so she had a plan to settle this old grudge, so as to avoid a rift between her and Twilight Tong City's city lord Qing Liuzi. Shao Hua's appearance was indeed unexpected. Others might not know Shao Hua's strength, but Chen Yi did know a little. Whether it was the terrifying phoenix in the sword battle or Wu Ming in the nascent soul realm, Chen Yi was quite wary of both of them. However, Chen Yi wasn't willing to give up such an excellent opportunity. She and Taoist I Ching from Dawntree City secretly observed Shao Hua. The two of them discovered that Shao Hua was only at the early nascent soul stage. Chen Yi alone might not be his match, but if the two of them joined forces, it was very likely that they could capture Shao Hua. Of course, the impression Shao Hua had left on Chen Yi was too deep. Chen Yi was still hesitant, but just as Chen Yigong had said, a fortune gate controlled by someone was more terrifying than an uncontrolled fortune gate. After weighing the pros and cons, the two of them still chose to attack. Shao Hua's calmness did not exceed Chen Yi's expectations, but she really did not understand why Shao Hua did not attack her, but instead turned around to attack the golden core cultivator beside her. However, when the thunderous sound came from Yuan Ye's body, an even more majestic pressure soared into the sky, and then rushed out in all directions like a flood. Yuan Ye's aura rose steadily, and in a few breaths' time, he was already as tall as a mountain, and his figure was indomitable like a demon god. Chen Yi finally came to her senses, and her face turned ashen in an instant. Compared to Yuan Ye's aura, her nascent soul aura couldn't even compare to a trickle. Damn it, run! Chen Yi cursed under her breath. She didn't have time to give an order, and her figure was about to teleport away. Unfortunately, in front of Yuan Ye, who had stepped into the 8th grade, Chen Yi, who had just broken through to the 4th grade, was not even comparable to a child. How could she possibly escape from Yuan Ye's hands? Seeing that the void around her had been sealed, and she couldn't see even a trace of heaven and earth's spiritual energy, and her body was as heavy as 10,000 caddies, she couldn't even move. Chen Yi's heart turned cold, and her thoughts raced as she shouted, Taoist Shao, the merciful and compassionate Taoist Shao, this servant knows her wrongs. This servant will not dare to do it again, please spare this servant. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a tip, and Chapter 5086. Shao Hua and the others heard Chen Yi's words clearly. Shao Hua shook his head slightly and said word by word, some people can be forgiven, but some people can't be forgiven. Forgiving a good person who made a mistake can reap good results, but forgiving a bad person who came to his senses can only reap bad results. Chen Yi still wanted to argue, but Yuan Ye had already taken out his devil spear. Woo! Woo! Devil Qi surged out amidst the cries of ghosts and howls of wolves. It had already covered 100 miles around them. In the blink of an eye, all the evil Qi, all the schemes, all the grudges, and all the schemes turned into nothing. The dragon-like devil spear was retracted, and the thousands of layers of devil Qi were also absorbed into the devil spear. Under the devil Qi, Zhen Qing and the others were revealed. Yuan Ye's spear had already shocked them. They had never thought that there would be such powerful cultivators in the world. Those were two nascent soul masters, dozens of Golden Core Realm and Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. They were much stronger than an ordinary sect. In just one spear strike, they had all turned into ashes. I've let you be stained with blood again. Xiaohua looked at Yuanya, retracting his devil spear and suppressing his cultivation. Xiaohua sighed and said, "But if I were to do it, I wouldn't be able to do it. Master is benevolent and doesn't like blood. Moreover, they are too weak. How can I let Master do it? Let disciple do it for you." Yuanya said nonchalantly, "This kind of slaughter is also beneficial to disciples' cultivation. Master understands." Xiaohua said and once again sealed Yuanya's cultivation to the Golden Core realm. Taoist Master. It really is Taoist Master Xiao. The unparalleled Taoist Master Xiao. Unlike Zhen Qing and the others who were panicking, Zhen Yu was filled with reverence. He couldn't help but exclaim, "With Taoist Master, our fortune gate will definitely be the number one." Suddenly, Zhen Yu realized that it was inappropriate and quickly shut his mouth. He looked at Zhen Qing awkwardly. Xiaohua frowned and looked at Zhen Yu. "What do you mean? Are you a spy sent by the Fortune Gate to the Imperial Lightning Sect?" Zhen Yu hurriedly knelt down and said, "Tao Master, Junior is indeed a disciple of the Imperial Lightning Sect, not a disciple of the Fortune Gate. However, this Junior's family has received Taoist Master's grace, and this Junior's family regards Taoist Master as a living Holy Spirit. Although this Junior cannot enter the Fortune Gate, this Junior, like many other cultivators, regards himself as a Fortune Gate disciple." See. Xiaohua suddenly realized something and sucked in a breath of cold air. He already understood why Qin Yi, who clearly knew that he was Xiaohua and didn't have any confidence, insisted on attacking him. Even if she couldn't capture him, she still wanted to kill him. "Senior," Sun Qian hurriedly said, "please don't blame Zhen Yu. This situation happened in the Dao cultivation sects of the 3 cultivation nations. No, it even happened in the sword sect of the Huan nation. After all, enlightened Master's grace back then spread throughout the entire world." Xiaohua nodded and said, "This old man understands. If it was someone else, perhaps they wouldn't have so much momentum, but this old man's cultivation method is a bit special." At this point, Xiaohua suddenly realized that something was wrong and hurriedly said with a smile, "Sun Qian, you don't have to call me senior, just call me Taoist Xiao." "Yes, Taoist Xiao." A shy look appeared on Sun Qian's pretty face. However, she did not loosen her grip on Zhen Qing's hand. Sun Qian had used her strength as her armor and stubbornness to protect herself all her life. When she tore her mask off, she cherished the affection she had just received more than anyone else. Senior brother," Sun Shu said with a slight groan. "Aren't you too low-key? I thought you were at most a cultivator in the middle or late nascent soul stage, but I didn't expect your disciple to be so powerful. I don't even know what realm he is at. What realm are you at?" Xiaohua looked at Sun Shu with a smile and said, "Is it important what realm I am at? The important thing is that no matter what realm I am at, I am still your senior brother, okay?" I like that." Sun Shu giggled and said, "If." Unfortunately, just as Sun Shu said those 2 words, the expression in her eyes changed and she didn't continue. Instead, she changed the topic and said, "If senior brother gives me some more benefits, I will like it even more." Isn't that simple? Xiaohua didn't hesitate and took out a storage pouch and handed it to her. "This is for you." "Senior brother, I was just joking." Sun Shu was naturally joking. She wanted to cover up what she almost said just now, but seeing that Xiaohua took it seriously, she was a little embarrassed. Xiaohua smiled and said, "Even if you didn't say it, I would still give it to you. We haven't seen each other for so many years, no matter what, there should be some greeting gift, right?" Then thank you, senior brother." Sun Shu and Xiaohua had experience together, so she naturally knew Xiaohua's temper. She didn't hold back and casually took the storage pouch and put it away without looking at it. Xiaohua then looked at Zhen Qing, who had been silent all this time, and thought for a moment before saying, "Martial uncle, Junior won't give you cultivation techniques or golden cores for the time being. Junior will give you some spiritual items to replenish your lifespan first. Once your lifespan is replenished, Junior will help you conceive a baby. After you conceive a baby, everything will be fine." As he said that, Xiaohua took out a few immortal peaches and gave them to Zhen Qing, Sun Qian, and even Sun Shu and Zhen Yu. Spiritual Master, what is this? Zhen Yu held the immortal peach and was a little puzzled. He asked, this thing can replenish my lifespan? This is an immortal peach. Xiaohua explained, it can replenish some of your lifespan, but it varies from person to person. Of course, you don't need it now, so you might as well keep it first and use it later. Your task now is to clean up the storage pouches and flying boats of the cultivators of Tongmu City and hand them over to Martial Uncle Zhen Qing. But Zhen Yu was overjoyed when he heard that. He kept the immortal peach and happily went to clean up the mess. Should I keep it too? Sun Shu thought for a moment and said, after all, I have already taken the rejuvenation pill before. Xiaohua said in a low voice, I have a lot of these things here. Just treat it as a taste of something new. Xiaohua's words made Sun Shu recall some memories. She held back the redness in her eyes and nodded, yes, senior martial brother. Then she took a bite of the immortal peach and let the sweet juice and the joy of reunion seep into her heart. Zhen Qing looked at Xiaohua with a complicated gaze. Back then, he was the first to discover that Xiaohua was Wu Ming. That kind of shock hadn't happened for hundreds of years. Now that he met Xiaohua again, the shock was 100 times stronger than before. He didn't know how to face this high-level cultivator who was so respectful to him. Xiaohua's disciple could easily kill nascent soul Chen Yi. Xiaohua's strength, perhaps even the Imperial Thunder Sect master couldn't compare to him. Of course, other than being shocked, Zhen Qing also felt guilty about Chen Yi's death. Zhen Qing was an indecisive person, but at the same time, he was also a sentimental person. Because of this, he had delayed himself and delayed Sun Qian. Now Chen Yi died in front of him. In an instant, all the memories of his life with Chen Yi flooded his mind. No one knew Zhen Qing better than Sun Qian. Sun Qian didn't say anything and just silently looked at Zhen Qing. This was the so-called deep hatred of love. After half a cup of tea, Zhen Yu returned and respectfully handed over some storage bags. He said, Martial Ancestor, oh? Zhen Qing came back to his senses and responded. He looked at the storage bags and asked, Zhen Yu, where are the corpses of the cultivators in Twilight Tong City? Why are they gone? Martial Ancestor. Zhen Yu hurriedly replied, Disciple didn't see any corpses. There were only storage bags, magic tools, flying boats and other things. Martial Uncle, don't worry. Xiaohua hurriedly explained. Although the corpses are gone, Yuanya only killed them and didn't erase their primordial spirits. The souls of these cultivators have already entered the cycle of reincarnation. Sigh, all right, I understand. Zhen Qing sighed and said to Zhen Yu, these are all Taoist Zhaos. It's better to let Taoist Xiao take them. Xiaohua smiled and said, Martial Ancestor, the so-called knot in one's heart is something that can't be removed. Since that's the case, it's better to put it aside. It's useless to think too much about it. As for these mortal things, I gave them to Martial Ancestor. Martial Ancestor didn't like them, so I'll let Zhen Yu take them first and distribute them to Martial Ancestor's disciples later. And we'll do as Taoist Xiao said. Sun Qian couldn't stand it anymore. She clenched her hand and said, let Zhen Yu take them first. Yes, I understand. When Zhen Yu heard that, he happily kept the storage pouch. Sun Shu urged, Martial Ancestor, quick, this immortal peach is very good. As he said that, Sun Shu casually looked through the storage bags that Xiaohua gave him. When he looked through them, he was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. Xiaohua noticed it and turned to look at Sun Shu. He nodded his head slightly. Sun Shu also smiled and carefully hid the storage bags. Since Zhen Qing didn't eat the immortal peach, Sun Qian naturally wouldn't eat it either. Although Zhen Qing's mood wasn't good, he still ate the immortal peach. Zhen Qing's cultivation was shallow and he couldn't feel that his lifespan was being replenished. However, when the immortal peach entered his mouth, a warm current rushed through his body. The warm feeling came from his heart. Zhen Qing, Sun Qian exclaimed, your hair, what's wrong? Zhen Qing didn't expect the immortal peach's effect to be so obvious. He didn't react for a moment and asked in astonishment. The heavens have eyes. Sun Qian was so happy that she cried. She hurriedly waved her right hand and a mirror appeared. In the mirror, Zhen Qing's white hair turned black and the wrinkles on his forehead also calmed down. Of course, after a few breaths, his hair stopped turning black and returned to the familiar white color. But even so, Xiaohua understood that Zhen Qing's lifespan had been replenished. As long as Zhen Qing stepped into the nascent soul realm within 100 years, he wouldn't have a problem living for another 1,000 years. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and Chapter 5087. Alas, it's no wonder that cultivators risk their lives and use unscrupulous means to advance. Xiaohua sighed with emotion as he inwardly said, the lifespan of an ordinary aura-refining cultivator is only 200 years. When they advance to the foundation-building realm, their lifespan will increase to 400 years. When they advance to the gold core realm, their lifespan will increase to 800 years. When they condense their nascent soul and communicate with heaven and earth, their lifespan will even increase to 2,000 years. In the face of such temptation, who would be able to maintain their Tao heart? Not only that, just as Sun Qian finished speaking, Sun Qian herself was startled. She looked at Zhen Qing in disbelief. Zhen Qing didn't understand. Xiaohua, who was at the side, smiled and said, "Congratulations, fellow Taoist. Since the knot in your heart is gone and your Tao realm has improved, you will definitely be pregnant within 10 years. Is that so?" Zhen Qing smiled and looked at Sun Qian. "Your wish has finally come true. Isn't it because—" Sun Qian was about to reply, but Zhen Qing's body suddenly trembled, and a surprised expression appeared on her face. Xiaohua had no choice but to congratulate him once again. "Congratulations, martial uncle. Since you're able to let go, you'll be able to jump out of this world. Within 10 years, you'll definitely be able to conceive a nascent soul." Sun Qian and Zhen Qing had been trapped in love for a long time, but they couldn't compare to Chen Yi who had severed their love long ago, so they couldn't conceive a baby for a long time. Now that Xiaohua had killed Chen Yi, the knot in their hearts was forcibly broken. Especially, the immortal peaches were the essence of heaven and earth. After the two of them ate the immortal peaches, the laws of heaven and earth had already quietly merged into their gene. Conceiving a baby was only a matter of time. "Congratulations, martial uncle. Congratulations, martial uncle." Sun Shu and Zhen Yu hurriedly went up to congratulate her. Zhen Qing's character was upright and she had always loved and cared for her disciples. Thus, Zhen Yu and the others congratulated her from the bottom of their hearts. Zhen Qing, who had just escaped death, smiled and helped the two of them up. He smiled and said, "This old man is useless. I haven't had a breakthrough in my cultivation for a long time. You two need to work harder. Don't be like this old man." "Yes, we understand." Sun Shu and Zhen Yu stood up. Zhen Qing then looked at Xiaohua and asked, "Taoist, are you still going with us to the Ardent Fire Mountain?" It seemed like Zhen Qing had already understood that it wasn't a coincidence that Xiaohua had met him. Xiaohua smiled. Since Zhen Qing didn't point it out, he wouldn't explain either. Thus, he replied, "Of course, this junior does indeed have some karma with the Ardent Fire Mountain. This time, I might as well settle it." "All right, with Zhenren, this old man has a plan in mind. This time, we won't embarrass the Imperial Thunder Sect." Zhen Qing said with relief. "Senior uncle, please." Seeing that Zhen Yu had already released the flying boat, Xiaohua hurriedly invited Zhen Qing onto the flying boat. Zhen Qing hesitated for a moment, but she didn't decline. She nodded and pulled Xiaohua onto the flying boat. Sun Qian carefully followed behind. It was rare for someone as stubborn as her to be so obedient. The flying boat once again soared into the sky. Sun Shu asked curiously from the side, "Senior apprentice brother, why do you still have a dispute with the Ardent Fire Mountain? Are they the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain that I met during the Great Sword Battle?" "Oh, it's a long story." Seeing that the airboat was not moving fast, Xiaohua knew that there was still a long way to go before they arrived at the Ardent Fire Mountain. Although he didn't need to talk about the 3 continents, it didn't matter if he told Shue about his experiential learning. Therefore, he told her about his fate with the ardent fire mountain. Since Xiaohua took the initiative to mention Shui Shui, Sun Shu also couldn't avoid it. After Xiaohua finished speaking, Sun Shu probed, "Senior apprentice brother, do you already know about senior apprentice sister?" Shui Shui was a foundation establishment disciple and Wu Hen was a golden core cultivator. Both of them had life spirit tablets in the Imperial Thunder sect. When the two of them died, the Imperial Thunder sect would discover it. Therefore, Sun Shu already knew that Shui Shui was no longer in this world. Then, Xiaohua nodded. "Shui Shui died for me. How come I didn't know about it? Senior apprentice sister is really powerful." Sun Shu suddenly understood something and whispered, "I can't compare with her." "There's no need to compare." Xiaohua smiled and said, "Everyone is different. Just be yourself." "When?" Zhen Qing asked. "The two of us are the same." Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, "That day when Junior left the Imperial Thunder sect, Junior discovered that two nascent soul cultivators were chasing Junior. Junior was unable to escape no matter how hard Junior tried. In the end, Master and Shui Shui suddenly appeared and self-detonated to trap the two of them. Junior was able to escape." Zhen Qing frowned. Clearly, she didn't understand why Shui Shui and Wu Hen suddenly appeared. However, Xiaohua was a member of the government. Zhen Qing could not believe his words. Moreover, this involved the two people closest to Xiaohua. Xiaohua definitely wouldn't lie. Therefore, Zhen Qing continued to ask, "What about the two nascent soul cultivators? Why were they chasing you?" "Those two nascent soul cultivators have already fallen," Xiaohua replied. "From the beginning to the end, they didn't reveal their identity. Junior doesn't know who they are and also doesn't know why they were chasing Junior." "Damn it." Zhen Qing recalled that day when Xiaohua was expelled from the Imperial Thunder sect and was chased by two nascent soul cultivators. Her heart was filled with anger, and she cursed in a low voice. "What about now?" Sun Qian was also worried about Xiaohua and asked. Xiaohua pursed his lips and smiled. "This is the reason why Junior wanted to hide his cultivation. This Junior wants to know, who is it that is so interested in this Junior?" Sun Shu said curiously, "Senior brother has already seen those two nascent soul cultivators. With senior brother's current strength, it shouldn't be difficult for you to find those two missing nascent soul cultivators, right?" "And this is of course simple." Xiaohua nodded. "However, senior brother still has more important things to do. Moreover, this matter, senior brother doesn't need to do it personally. Presumably, someone has already investigated it. Senior brother can just find someone to ask. What senior brother wants to do now is to find the mastermind behind these missing nascent soul cultivators. Senior brother wants to lure the snake out of its hole." Sun Shu understood and said with a smile, "Senior brother has always been low-key. Even for such an important matter, you still handle it this way." "There are many ways to solve this problem," Xiaohua said with a smile. "With senior brother's current strength, it's even easier. Senior brother can find the truth with any method. Senior brother just casually found one." "That's true." Sun Shu glanced at Yunya, who didn't speak much, and said with some jealousy, "Senior brother has such a powerful disciple who can casually sweep across the Dawn Rain continent. Then there's no need to care about the method." After saying that, Sun Shu was curious and asked, "Hee, senior brother, how many of such disciples do you have?" "Not many, only 6. Xiaohua didn't hide and replied with a smile. "So many?" Sun Shu said in surprise. "Are they as powerful as Yuanya?" "And more or less." Xiaohua knew that this was a chat and said without hiding anything, "Some are more powerful than him, and some are worse than him. Senior brother, you really have the momentum of sweeping across the Dawn Rain continent." Sun Shu couldn't help but cry out, then her eyes turned and asked tentatively, "How about this, senior brother, you let your disciple accept me as a disciple?" Sun Shu's feelings for Xiaohua were also deep, but in front of Shui Shui, Sun Shu still tactfully hid these thoughts. Now that Shui Shui had fallen, Sun Shu was even more moved by Shui Shui's fearless love. Her love couldn't help but sprout, so this sentence was also a kind of test. who knew that Xiaohua's reaction was far beyond her expectations. Xiaohua raised his hand slightly and placed it on Sun Shu's head, rubbing her hair, and said with a smile, "You are this Xiao's little sister. What do you want to cultivate this senior brother can teach you? Why do you need to take them as your master? Logically speaking, they should be able to call you martial aunt." "Yes, senior brother, this junior sister understands." Sun Shu's heart ached. She knew that she couldn't be compared to Xue Xue in this life. Although she agreed, the disappointment in her heart was far greater than the joy in her mouth. Seeing Xiaohua cut off Sun Shu's feelings so neatly, Sun Qian at the side sighed with emotion. She looked at Zhen Qing beside her and understood that if Zhen Qing was like this a few years ago, things wouldn't have ended up like this. However, looking at Sun Shu's disappointment and thinking about her own gains, Sun Qian sighed with emotion and also felt happy. Zhen Qing pondered, but she only put this thought aside and asked with a smile, "Xiaohua, where have you been cultivating in seclusion these past few years? Why is there no news at all?" In other realms, Xiaohua knew that Zhen Qing was concerned, but he still smiled and said, "This matter will be known by martial uncle in the future. This junior won't waste time talking about it." But Zhen Qing nodded. Xiaohua was afraid that he would ask too much, so he thought for a moment and said, "Martial uncle, back then, you gave this junior your understanding of core condensation, which was extremely helpful to this junior's cultivation. Now that this junior has taken a step earlier, I will also share my understanding with martial uncle. Yes, you steer the boat and let Zhen Yu point out the direction." "Yes, master." Yuan Ye replied and asked for the direction of Ardent Fire Mountain. He urged the flying boat to fly faster than before. Zhen Qing, Sun Qian, Sun Shu and Zhen Yu sat on the flying boat and listened to Xiaohua's detailed explanation. Xiaohua's explanation was naturally different from the others. He could see the flaws in each person's cultivation and where they needed to be supplemented. Therefore, although it seemed that he was talking to the four of them, each of them listened as if he was exhorting them. They really benefited a lot. Even after 10 days, when Ardent Fire Mountain was already in sight, they were still immersed in the enlightenment and did not hear anything. Xiaohua stopped and said with a smile, "Martial uncle, we are already near Ardent Fire Mountain. You can inform the Fire Qilin now." Zhen Qing and the others were listening to the wonderful part. Xiaohua suddenly stopped and felt a little embarrassed. Sun Shu could not help but beg, "Senior martial brother, please talk for another half a day. This little sister is listening with enthusiasm." Unfortunately, Xiaohua shook his head and said, "It's not that I don't want to talk, but this kind of explanation is far from ending. If I don't talk about it until you step into the Mahayana realm and ascend to the Immortal realm, you will never feel satisfied." Then how about another half a day?" Zhen Qing could not help but ask. But Xiaohua pondered for a moment, nodded and started talking again. Sure enough, half a day passed very quickly. When Xiaohua stopped talking, the four of them still felt that they were not satisfied. Without waiting for Sun Shu to speak, Xiaohua said with a smile, "In the future, if I establish a sect in the Dawn Rain continent, I will definitely hold a forum and give lectures. If you all want to listen, you can go at that time. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank you for all kinds of support." Chapter 5088. Alas! Zhen Yu sighed and said, "It's only today that Junior understands what it means to gladly endure hardships. Previously, when Junior was cultivating, there were often things that Junior didn't understand. Sometimes, the master who taught me didn't explain it clearly, which made Junior feel that the path of cultivation was really difficult. But now, after listening to Taoist's lecture, I feel that the path of cultivation is really bright." "You think too much." Xiaohua responded and said to Zhen Qing, "Martial uncle, send out the summoning talisman. If we delay any longer, there might be other cultivators coming to the Ardent Fire Mountain." But Zhen Qing glanced at Xiaohua and knew that he had already discovered other cultivators. She quickly took out the summoning talisman and activated it with her magic power. The summoning talisman flew into the distant Crimson Mountain range and disappeared. Seeing the summoning talisman disappear, Zhen Qing was about to ask who the other cultivators were when a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. He couldn't help but bite his lips because he already understood that Xiaohua's appearance wasn't just a coincidence. It might even be intentional. Xiaohua wanted to test Chen Yi. Alas, this is fate. Zhen Qing sighed inwardly. Chen Yi has been scheming against others all her life, but I didn't expect that she would fall into someone else's scheme today. No, it should be said that this is someone else's test. If she was a little bit more sentimental, she wouldn't have ended up in this state. Zhen Qing, who was easily sentimental, fell into a state of longing again and didn't say anything. In the sky, other than the flying boat, there was only the whistling of the mountain wind. The mountain peak here was different from other places. Other than the mountain rocks being crimson red, the ground was also crimson red. On the ground, there was a type of plant that was more than a foot tall. This plant stem was red, and between the branches and leaves, there was a spiral shape. Layer after layer of light red was stained on the surface like smoke. When the wind blew, the red leaves danced, as if they were covered in flames. On the mountain peak, there were also tall pine trees. These pine trees were also red. Although the red of the pine trees wasn't as bright as the red of the ground and was somewhat dark, the red was dense like blood. When the mountain wind whistled, the pine trees swayed, and the crimson color danced. Amidst the crimson color, a fiery red flying shuttle that could only accommodate one person flew out from the mountain range. When the flying shuttle landed, an aura-refining disciple jumped down from the shuttle. Looking at everyone, he didn't dare to neglect and bowed respectfully. Junior is Huafeng from the Ardent Fire Mountain. Get up. Zhen Qing collected her thoughts and helped Huafeng up with a smile. We are disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect. We rushed here after receiving the Fire Qilin's message. Bring us to him. Huafeng stood up and looked at the crowd. He smiled and said, Seniors, may I know which one of you is Ancestor Zhen? Oh, because my Imperial Thunder Sect has some important matters to attend to, Martial Ancestor Zhen can't come personally, so he sent us over. Sun Shu frowned and answered for Zhen Qing. Then, Huafeng was still unwilling to give up and asked, which Grandmaster is a nascent soul Grandmaster? No nascent soul Grandmaster from my Imperial Thunder Sect has come. Sun Shu was somewhat displeased and said, if the Fire Qilin doesn't welcome the disciples of the Imperial Lightning Sect, then we will return and report to Ancestor Zhen. Senior, please forgive me. Huafeng was sent by the Fire Qilin to welcome them, so he was naturally eloquent. He hurriedly replied, Junior didn't mean that. Junior doesn't know if my Grandmaster made it clear in the message he sent to Ancestor Zhen, but the current situation in the Ardent Fire Mountain is somewhat complicated. If you don't have the strength of a nascent soul Grandmaster, I'm afraid you won't be able to deal with it. Moreover, your life might be in danger, so Junior asked a few more questions. The meaning in Huafeng's words was very clear. If Xiaohua wasn't here, Zhen Qing might have turned around and left. But at this moment, Zhen Qing's expression was calm and she said with a smile, Huafeng, don't worry. Bring us to see the Fire Qilin. We definitely won't disappoint him. Huafeng naturally couldn't tell the strength of Xiaohua, Yuanya, Zhen Qing and the others, but after hearing Zhen Qing's assurance, he was overjoyed. He brought Zhen Qing and the others and flew into the depths of the mountain. Senior Martial Brother. Sun Shu couldn't help but ask through voice transmission, are there any other cultivators from the other sects coming? Are there any other cultivators from the other sects? Sun Shu didn't know what to say when he saw the blazing hot air in front of him. Xiaohua glanced into the distance and revealed a strange expression. He said with a smile, I don't know many nascent soul cultivators, but I'm very familiar with this nascent soul cultivator. Who? Sun Shu was somewhat curious. After all, Xiaohua was only a foundation establishment cultivator before he went missing. Meng Country, Changbai Sect, Taoist Jianghu. Xiaohua said word by word. Taoist Jianghu? Sun Shu was stunned and asked curiously, he's a cultivator from Meng Country. Why did he come to my country of Shi? There's no other way. Xiaohua said with a smile, it seems that there are many nascent soul cultivators who received the favor of the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain. After several hundred years, their descendants can still find nascent soul cultivators to help them with their tokens. It's just that if the three elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain were the same person, and now that they're divided into three sects, I don't know who this favor belongs to. Xiaohua's words were naturally sarcastic. Zhen Qing and Sun Shu might not know, but Xiaohua was clear about the eccentric temperament of the three nascent soul cultivators of the Ardent Fire Mountain. The nascent soul cultivators they offended definitely exceeded the number of nascent soul cultivators who received their favor. Yes, it's been more than 700 years since the Sword Dao War. Zhen Qing sighed and said, "The Fire Qilin took the token and went to find Martial Ancestor General. No wonder Martial Ancestor didn't want to come. Moreover, the Fire Qilin didn't come personally and only sent Hua Feng over. There's something wrong with that." Xiaohua was stunned. He thought that Zhen Lei Palace really had some urgent matter, but now, it seemed that it was just Zhen Qing's excuse. "Senior Martial Brother," Sun Shu asked, "how did you know Taoist Jingru? How could we know each other?" Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, "This guy has enmity with me." Soon after, Xiaohua whispered about the grudge between him and Taoist Jingru. Hearing that Taoist Jingru, a nascent soul cultivator, actually chased after Xiaohua from Gai He all the way to the Imperial Thunder Sect, Sun Shu and Zhen Qing's expressions changed. Sun Shu even said with righteous indignation, Is this still a nascent soul cultivator? So shameless?" Fortunately, Xiaohua smiled and said, "I was lucky enough to escape back to the Imperial Thunder Sect. Since then, I haven't seen this guy again." Sun Shu shouted, "Senior Martial Brother, just kill him." Zhen Qing immediately thought of Qin Yi and said with a bitter smile, "Taoist really came back to the Dawn Rain continent to settle the karma." "AI, yes, if I don't settle the karma, how can my Tao heart be clear?" Xiaohua said while transforming, "Martial Uncle, if there's anything, just tell Yuanya. Junior will see what Taoist Jingru is like now before making a decision." Seeing Xiaohua transforming into an unfamiliar cultivator, Zhen Qing smiled bitterly and said, "All right, I hope this senior Jingru can pass the test." "Taoist?" Sun Qian, who had been silent all this time, suddenly asked, "Since you understand karma, are you preparing for ascension?" "Oh." Xiaohua was surprised. He looked at Sun Qian and said, "You know about ascension?" Sun Qian's face was a bit red, and she said with a smile, "Junior obtained a broken jade slip a long time ago, and there was an introduction about ascension inside. However, ascension is only a legend, so Junior has long forgotten about it." Xiaohua nodded and replied, "More or less." Xiaohua's words were really shocking. Previously, Sun Shu inferred with common sense that Xiaohua was a mid-nascent soul cultivator. Later, when she saw how powerful Yuanya was, Sun Shu racked her brains to guess Xiaohua's cultivation level. Now, when she heard that Xiaohua was about to ascend, her brain buzzed, as if the whole world was about to collapse or darken. The immortal realm was almost ethereal to all the cultivators on the Dawn Rain continent, but to Sun Shu, it was closer to an ideal. She had never thought that she would be able to face a cultivator who was about to ascend. Moreover, this cultivator had traveled with her and gone through trials and hardships together. Seeing everyone's astonishment, Xiaohua said with a smile, "This is the path that all cultivators must take. As long as you all work hard, this day will definitely come." Yes, Junior understands. Facing such a supreme cultivator, Zhen Qing didn't dare to be negligent. She bowed and replied, "Understood." AI, another karma settled. When Xiaohua heard how Zhen Qing addressed him, he sighed in his heart. He understood that he had one less concern in this world. While everyone was talking, they arrived in front of another mountain. This mountain was one of the many mountain peaks. Cryptic fluctuations were emitted from it from time to time. Wherever the fluctuations passed, faint flames would appear in the void. When the wind blew, the flames would also appear. Everyone stood in front of the mountain peak as if they were facing a huge bundle of flames. "Senior, please wait a moment." Hua Feng stopped and respectfully said, "Junior asks Martial Ancestor to come out and welcome us." Zhen Qing replied with a smile. With an ascended cultivator overseeing things, she was even more confident. Huo Feng sent out a communication talisman. Not long after, the fire Qilin flew over with a group of disciples from the ardent fire mountain. Some of these disciples were quite old, some were young, and some were in the foundation establishment realm. However, most of them were in the aura refining realm. When the fire Qilin saw that Xing Yunzi wasn't among the group of cultivators, he was obviously disappointed. However, this was within his expectations. When he saw Xiao Hua, his face unconsciously became more spirited. He hurriedly bowed respectfully and said, "Junior Fire Qilin greets Senior. Senior, you seem a bit unfamiliar. How should I address you?" "This old man's name is Zhang Xiaohua," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Just call me Senior Zhang." Yes, Junior greets Senior Zhang." After the fire Qilin bowed, he greeted everyone. Xiaohua paid attention to the fire Qilin. At this time, the fire Qilin was already a late-stage gold core cultivator. Not only was his face old, but there was also a lot of fatigue between his eyebrows. However, the way he greeted people was very different from before. He was no longer straightforward and had added the necessary etiquette. Although there was a lot of hypocrisy in his etiquette, it could still be considered an improvement. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Thank you for all forms of support. Thank you to Alliance Leader Mei Xianjun, Alliance Leader Chuan Tong, Alliance Leader Taoist Xiao, Book of Flight, and other fellow Taoists. Chapter 5089. After greeting each other, the fire Qilin couldn't help but ask again, "Fellow Taoist Zhen, does Senior Xing Yunzi really have no time to come? Today's matter is really too important to I." Hearing this, Xiao Hua laughed in his heart and thought to himself, after all, it's the fire Qilin. If it was someone else who knew that Xing Yunzi wasn't coming, why would they ask again? Moreover, he didn't go out to greet him and only sent a disciple. This is obviously disrespectful to the Imperial Thunder sect. Zhen Qing had no choice but to repeat the previous words. The disappointment on the fire Qilin's face deepened. He looked at Zhen Qing and then at Xiao Hua and asked in a low voice, "Senior Zhang, what's your current strength?" "I'm at the early nascent soul stage," Xiao Hua said proudly. "Well, if you only want to wait for Xing Yunzi, then I'll go back first." Zhen Qing hurriedly mediated and said, "Fire Qilin, Senior Zhang is a good friend of my Grandmaster. Grandmaster Zhen can't come, so he specially invited Senior Zhang to come. Don't be rude." The fire Qilin woke up and hurriedly said with an apologetic smile, "Senior, please don't blame me. Junior didn't mean that." Junior heard that the fire Luan not only invited Changbai Sect's Reverend Jing Ru, but also invited a mysterious cultivator. That Reverend Jing Ru is a senior in the middle or late nascent soul stage. Junior was afraid that Senior Zhang would be at a disadvantage. "Fire Qilin, why did you invite Xing Yunzi over?" Xiao Hua frowned and said, "I'm only here to represent Xing Yunzi. I'm not here to fight with my life on the line. You have to explain the matter clearly." The fire Qilin was somewhat embarrassed and hurriedly replied, "Senior, there's no need to fight with my life on the line, but a fight is possible. Junior begs Senior. Junior's life is in Senior's hands. I'm just an early nascent soul stage cultivator. How can I be Reverend Jing Ru's opponent?" Xiao Hua said, "You've put your life on my hands. Isn't it all for nothing?" "Oh, Senior, don't worry." The fire Qilin said again, "Junior invited Senior Zhen and others, damn it." Xiao Hua said somewhat angrily, "Fire Qilin, what's going on? What happened to your ardent fire mountain? Who else did you invite?" "Senior." The fire Qilin hurriedly replied. But at that moment, whoosh! Another messaging talisman flew over from afar, passing through the many restrictive spells and landing in front of the fire Qilin. The fire Qilin received the messaging talisman and glanced at it. It was immediately overjoyed and cried out, "Senior Zhang, please wait a moment. This junior will go and welcome Adept Bluefeather. Everything will be explained once I return." After saying that, the fire Qilin's figure streaked across the sky and rushed out of the ardent fire mountain. Behind him, the group of ardent Fire Mountain disciples were somewhat flustered. They did not know if they should follow the Fire Qilin to welcome Adept Bluefeather or stay here to accompany Xiaohua and the others. Of course, this was only for a short moment before some older disciples of the ardent Fire Mountain appeared. After a brief discussion, some of them brought their disciples and flew up to welcome Adept Bluefeather. Some of them stayed where they were, accompanying Xiaohua and the others as they waited for Adept Bluefeather. Senior, please forgive me. The one who accompanied Xiaohua was an early-stage gold core old man. He smiled and said to Xiaohua, Senior, don't look at my family's young master's lack of understanding. His temperament is the most straightforward and sincere. He is the most suitable candidate to be the sect master of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Only he can convince the masses and make the other two sects of the Ardent Fire Mountain follow him wholeheartedly. Xiaohua did not comment. He also looked out of the Ardent Fire Mountain like everyone else. He seemed to have some thoughts in his heart. Adept Bluefeather is a nascent soul cultivator of the Meng Nation's Immortal music sect. Adept Jianghu is also a nascent soul cultivator of the Meng Nation's Changbai sect. These two nascent soul cultivators of the Meng Nation were invited by two people of the Ardent Fire Mountain at the same time. Is this a coincidence? In fact, whether it was a coincidence or not didn't mean anything to Xiaohua. In just half a cup of tea's time, Adept Bluefeather and his disciples had already arrived in front of the Ardent Fire Mountain accompanied by the Fire Qilin. Xiaohua had met Adept Bluefeather in the Xinkong Pavilion of Haoming City. At that time, Adept Bluefeather was just a short and fat early-stage nascent soul cultivator. 600 years had left a lot of hardships on Adept Bluefeather's face. It even allowed Adept Bluefeather to step into the late-stage nascent soul stage. However, it did not change Adept Bluefeather's short and fat body. Xiaohua recognized the high and mighty nascent soul grandmaster at a glance. Junior greets Adept Bluefeather. Although Adept Bluefeather was a cultivator of the Meng Nation, the disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain and the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect all bowed to greet him. While everyone bowed, only Xiaohua and Yuanya stood upright. Adept Bluefeather naturally saw Xiaohua and Yuanya. Xiaohua was somewhat glad that he had suppressed his realm to the nascent soul stage. If he had been at the gold core stage, he might have had to salute Adept Bluefeather. Wouldn't he have reaped what he sowed? Thinking of this, Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, I Zhang Xiaohua greets Adept Bluefeather. Zhang Xiaohua. Adept Bluefeather frowned and asked curiously, how come this old man didn't know that there was a nascent soul cultivator called Zhang Xiaohua in the country of Xi? Fellow Taoist is not a cultivator of the country of Xi, so naturally you don't know about the matters of the country of Xi. Xiaohua retorted indifferently, could it be that every nascent soul cultivator in the country of Xi has to report to the country of Meng? Senior. The Fire Qilin hurriedly tried to smooth things over and said with a smile, Senior Bluefeather, this Senior Zhang is a good friend of Senior Xing Yunzi from the Imperial Thunder sect. He came to my Ardent Fire Mountain because of Senior Zhen's request. Senior, please don't misunderstand. How can this old man misunderstand? Adept Bluefeather sneered, this old man is only afraid that someone has mixed in with us and hindered you from taking charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Take charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain? Xiaohua frowned and said, Fire Qilin, this old man asked you before. This old man didn't know what happened to your Ardent Fire Mountain, and you didn't explain clearly. How come there's someone taking charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain now? The Fire Qilin smiled bitterly and said, Senior Zhang, no matter what, you are still a nascent soul cultivator of the country of Xi. How could you not know the current situation of my Ardent Fire Mountain? Xiaohua nodded and said, this old man naturally knows the situation of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Since the fall of the three elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain hundreds of years ago, the Ardent Fire Mountain has become a pile of loose sand. There hasn't been a qualified sect master to support the Ardent Fire Mountain. Speaking up to here, Xiaohua suddenly realized and said, this old man understands. This time, you want to choose a suitable sect master, right? Facing Xiaohua's hindsight, the Fire Qilin was a little embarrassed. He smiled and said, Senior Zhang is right. That's why this junior invited Adept Bluefeather and Senior Gen to help this junior, so that I can take the position of Sect Master of the Ardent Fire Mountain in one fell swoop. Xiaohua took a deep look at the Fire Qilin and said with a smile, "So that's how it is." This old man received Xing Yunzi's message and hurried over, so I didn't think much about it. No wonder you said that you needed this old man to take action. But since this old man wants to take action, what benefits does this old man have? Seeing Xiaohua directly ask about the benefits in front of so many people, the Fire Qilin's expression became very awkward. He looked at Adept Bluefeather and opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he hesitated. Adept Bluefeather was displeased. He looked at Xiaohua and asked, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, which sect are you from?" "Fortune Gate." Xiaohua replied indifferently. "Fortune Gate?" Adept Bluefeather was stunned. Then, a sneer appeared on his face and he said coldly, "So you were sent by Zhong Haoren to tease this old man." When the Fire Qilin heard this, he was also stunned. He looked at Xiaohua strangely and whispered, "Fortune Gate?" Without waiting for Xiaohua to explain, Adept Bluefeather said, "This old man doesn't care which sect you are from, but since you are a nascent soul master, you should have the awareness of a nascent soul master. You should understand the rules of a high-level cultivator. When you saw this old man just now, you didn't even know how to salute, and now you are asking about the benefits in front of others. Could it be that your family's elders didn't teach you?" Seeing that Adept Bluefeather was getting angry and even dared to talk about his sect's elders, an early gold core old man who had accompanied the Fire Qilin to greet Adept Bluefeather hurriedly flew out from the crowd and bowed, "Senior Bluefeather, please don't be anxious." Adept Bluefeather was even more displeased with being interrupted. He sneered, "Who are you? How dare you interrupt this old man?" The Fire Qilin hurriedly said, "Senior, please know that this is the Hall Master of my Ardent Fire Mountain's Fire Spirit Hall, Hall Master Hua Pengfei. Senior, please don't be anxious. Listen to Junior's explanation." Hua Pengfei said with a smile, "Although this Senior Zhang is a bit straightforward, his words are not excessive. After all, he followed Senior to the Ardent Fire Mountain from afar. From a moral point of view, he has already done his best. Supporting my Fire Qilin's martial uncle Hua to take charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain is not something that can be decided with just a few words. We invited seniors to come here to borrow seniors' strength. If my Ardent Fire Mountain did not pay any price, how could seniors help us? When we sent the message to seniors that day, juniors wanted to make things clear. However, Martial Uncle Qilin felt that seniors had not come yet, so it was too unscrupulous to talk about the price and benefits. Therefore, he did not say anything. As a matter of fact, it caused a misunderstanding. Senior Xing Yunzi of the Imperial Thunder sect did not come, and Senior Zhang also misunderstood that my Ardent Fire Mountain only spoke empty words. This is the fault of my Ardent Fire Mountain. Junior apologizes to seniors on behalf of Martial Uncle Qilin. Seeing that Hua Pengfei was apologizing, the Fire Qilin hurriedly said, "This is my fault. How can I let Hall Master Hua apologize?" Senior Zhang, Senior Bluefeather, Junior was not familiar with the affairs of the common people in his early years. These years I have changed a lot, but after all, let's not talk about it. This is Junior's fault. Seniors, please forgive me. Xiaohua was about to raise his hand to speak when he suddenly saw Adept Bluefeather's lips move. His heart stirred and he slightly urged his divine ability. Adept Bluefeather's voice transmitted to his ears, "Pengfei, Fire Qilin still hasn't decided? This Zhang Xiaohua is a nascent soul cultivator from which sect in the state of Xi? Don't let him mess up our plans." P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, collect a collection, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5090. Senior, don't worry. Hua Pengfei bowed and said, "This is not a matter of Fire Qilin's decision. Fire Hibiscus and Fire Luan have already offered that item as the price. How could he not comply? If Ardent Fire Mountain had not decided on this matter, how could this junior dare to let Fire Qilin send a communication talisman to senior? As for this Zhang Xiaohua, this junior has never heard of her. However, When I sent the message to Imperial Thunder Sect's Senior Xing Yunzi, there was no mention of that item. Presumably, Senior Xing Yunzi did not know about it, so he sent this senior over. This shows that Imperial Thunder Sect does not attach importance to this matter. Senior Zhang, I'll have to trouble Senior to speak about it. After all, this junior has already told Senior that a senior from Imperial Thunder Sect will come. This old man understands. Taoist Master Bluefeather agreed and said, this old man will see the situation first. Hee. Xiaohua understood and thought, so the matter of Ardent Fire Mountain is really complicated. This Taoist Master Bluefeather does not seem to have a relationship with the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain, but is colluding with this hall master called Huopengfei. His goal is the item of Ardent Fire Mountain. However, Taoist Master Bluefeather is already a mid or late nascent soul cultivator. At this time, Ardent Fire Mountain does not even have a single nascent soul cultivator. If he wants that item, he can just come and take it. Why go through so much trouble? Xiaohua thought and hurriedly raised his hand to support Fire Qilin and the others. He said with a smile, this old man is ashamed of himself. This old man is not a profiteer. Because of the changes in the world's spiritual energy, this old man has seen my fellow Taoists fall under the thunder tribulation one after another. This old man is pregnant with a nascent soul and needs to cultivate peacefully. How can I act rashly? Therefore this old man wants to know. Senior. Fire Qilin stood up and bit his lips. He seemed to be forced to speak. Senior, rest assured, my Ardent Fire Mountain. Just as Fire Qilin said this, a whistling sound came from the distant mountain range. Everyone looked up and saw a fireball falling like a star. Fire Qilin saw the fireball and his expression changed slightly. He glanced at Huopengfei, who also had an inexplicable expression, and whispered, Lu Hua's message? Martial uncle, could it be? It seems that there is a change. Fire Qilin said. The fireball had already landed in front of Fire Qilin in a flash. The Fire Qilin opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of scarlet-red true yuan into the fireball. The fireball quickly shrank and turned into a fist-sized jade ball. When the Fire Qilin's divine sense entered the jade ball, a look of realization appeared on its face. It said, the Fire Hibiscus and the Fire Luan request to postpone the battle. They intend to change it to 10 days later. After saying this, the Fire Qilin seemed to have temporarily removed a heavy burden, and said to Taoist Master Bluefeather and Xiaohua with a smile, since that's the case, seniors, please move to the Fire Spirit Hall. Junior, wait. Before the Fire Qilin could finish speaking, Huopengfei spoke abruptly. Martial uncle, you must not agree to it. Seniors, there's no need to wait here. Head directly to Jianghu Peak. Oh. The Fire Qilin was puzzled and asked, why? The two seniors have come from afar and haven't rested yet. Isn't it good for them to delay the time? Martial uncles, can you tell me the reason for the delay? Huopengfei asked. The Fire Qilin shook its head. Then when is the date we agreed on? Huopengfei asked. Tomorrow, of course. The Fire Qilin smiled. Isn't this what we agreed on together? Martial uncle? Huopengfei smiled bitterly. Senior, you have to think about it. They wanted to set the time 5 days ago, but the reason we strongly opposed it and insisted on setting the time tomorrow was because we were worried that Senior Bluefeather wouldn't be able to arrive in time. Now that Senior Bluefeather and Senior Zhang have arrived, they want to postpone it instead. Senior, why do you think they are postponing it? The Fire Qilin was ignorant of worldly affairs, but that didn't mean it was stupid. On the contrary, it was extremely intelligent. When it heard this, it already understood and nodded. That's right, there's no need to say anything more. The reinforcements Hua Furong and Hua Wan asked for definitely didn't arrive in time, so they decided to postpone it. If we want to win, we definitely can't agree to postpone it. At this point, the Fire Qilin hesitated again and said, But when we asked to postpone it that day, Furong also helped us. Martial Uncle Qilin. Huopengfei persuaded. Senior, think about it again. If not for Martial Uncle Furong having difficulties and her reinforcements not arriving in time, would she have agreed to postpone it? Now, there's no time to lose. Martial Uncle has sent a message to Lu Hua, saying that he doesn't agree to postpone it. Furthermore, we will now rush to Jianghu Peak. Senior Blue Feather and Senior Zhang will be waiting there. We'll see how they respond. The Fire Qilin was still hesitant. Following which, some disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain began to persuade it. After a few moments, the Fire Qilin sent a message to Xiaohua and Taoist Blue Feather. Two seniors, this junior originally wanted to set up a banquet, no need to say more. Taoist Blue Feather was rather straightforward. He flicked his sleeve and said, "This old man doesn't lack a banquet from your Ardent Fire Mountain. Hurry to Jianghu Peak. This matter is over. This old man still has other matters to attend to." Gracias. Senior, please. The Fire Qilin respectfully said. "This junior happens to be on the way. I'll explain the matter that I didn't explain to the two seniors." Xiao Huan naturally didn't mind. He flew to the other side of the Fire Qilin and listened to the Fire Qilin explain the matter. It wasn't particularly different from his guess. After the Ardent Fire Mountain was divided into 3 factions, they hadn't been able to select a suitable sect head. Although the Fire Qilin's cultivation was high, he wasn't familiar with common affairs. Many disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain were unconvinced. Huofeng and Huijiao weren't strong either. Therefore, the 3 factions had been in a stalemate for close to 100 years. Afterwards, when they saw the Ardent Fire Mountain declining, everyone felt that if this continued, the Ardent Fire Mountain would be exterminated before the sect had appeared. Therefore, everyone thought of the final battle. Speaking of battle, the Fire Qilin was naturally the leader. Huofeng and Huoluan proposed that they couldn't rely on the disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain to decide the sect head. After all, the Ardent Fire Mountain was also a Dao cultivator sect in the Cultivation 3 nations. They could also invite disciples from other sects to participate. If the Fire Qilin had more tricks up his sleeves, he naturally wouldn't agree. However, the Fire Qilin only cared about his family and didn't think too much about it. Therefore, he readily agreed. Of course, if they invited cultivators from outside the Ardent Fire Mountain to participate, Jindan cultivators definitely wouldn't do. At the very least, they would have to be early nascent soul cultivators. If they wanted early nascent soul cultivators to participate, just as Xiaohua said, there would be a price. And the price for the entire Ardent Fire Mountain to pay for a nascent soul cultivator to participate was the most valuable treasure of the Ardent Fire Mountain, Jianghu Peak. As for what this most valuable treasure was, it seemed that only the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain who had fallen knew about it. No one else knew. This most valuable treasure was sealed within the fire pond under Jianghu Peak. If they wanted to open this seal, they would have to rely on the 3 tokens that the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain usually hung around their necks. These 3 tokens weren't lost during the sword battle. They were brought back to the Ardent Fire Mountain by the disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain and obtained by the leaders of the 3 sections. Now, they were in the hands of the Fire Qilin, Fire Hibiscus, and Fire Luan respectively. To open the seal, not only did it require the 3 tokens, it also required the blood essence of 3 direct bloodlines and a secret technique. It was said that the secret technique was even more strange. It was different every hour. Only by activating the token and dripping a drop of blood essence on the seal would the caster be able to know what the secret technique was. And if the caster didn't know the secret technique or failed to open the seal of the fire pond would produce an extremely powerful backlash that would kill the caster. This was perhaps the reason why Taoist Master Blue Feather didn't dare to act rashly. The current plan of the Ardent Fire Mountain was to use this most valuable treasure to ask a nascent soul grandmaster to help and choose a sect master of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Moreover, the nascent soul grandmaster would have to swear a blood oath to help the sect master govern the Ardent Fire Mountain for 100 years. After listening to the Fire Qilin's introduction, Xiaohua smiled wryly and said, "Fire Qilin, it's not that I don't agree, but you don't even know what the treasure under the Dove Fire Mountain is, yet you want this old man to help? Moreover, I have to swear a blood oath to help you govern the Ardent Fire Mountain for 100 years. If other sects besiege the Ardent Fire Mountain, does my Fortune Gate have to help you out?" This The fire Qilin smiled apologetically. Senior's words are reasonable. However, since it's something my 3 great-grandfathers sealed, it can't be wrong. It should be something that seniors can use. Perhaps, it would be of some help when one's cultivation reaches the severed god realm. As for helping this junior, I hope senior can forgive me. Although my ardent fire mountain has declined, if the 3 sects work together, 100 years is enough for my ardent fire mountain to recover. Therefore, if senior obtains the treasure, I hope senior can protect my ardent fire mountain for 100 years. Alright. If your ardent fire mountain thinks this treasure is worth it, then this old man will reluctantly agree. Xiao Hua nodded thoughtfully, but he soon realized something and frowned. But, does your ardent fire mountain have 2 supreme treasures? How will this old man and Taoist Blue Feather divide them? Fellow Taoist Jiang. Taoist Blue Feather sneered and said, the ardent fire mountain may have 1 supreme treasure, or 2, or even 3 supreme treasures. However, before we discuss how to divide them, you and I must first consider helping the fire Qilin seize the sect master position. Secondly, we must consider who will put in more effort and who will put in less effort in the process of competing for the position. Hee hee. Xiao Hua laughed. This old man thinks that with 2 nascent soul masters like us here, the ardent fire mountain's sect master position will be easily obtained. Is it possible that the fire hibiscus and the fire luan will invite 4 more nascent soul masters? Fellow Taoist Zhang, don't be careless. Taoist Blue Feather frowned. You have the opportunity to advance to the nascent soul realm, and other cultivators naturally have the same opportunity. Although the spiritual chi of heaven and earth has changed, and many cultivators have fallen under the sudden nascent soul thunder tribulation, many disciples of aristocratic families have awakened their bloodline, and they have the opportunity to attack the nascent soul realm. The current strength of the aristocratic families in my Meng country has already emerged, and they are close to the true cultivation sects. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 5091. As Xiao Hua flew, he seemed to be pondering. After a long time, he nodded and said, all right. My cultivation is not as good as fellow Blue Feathers, so I can't use more strength than fellow Blue Feather. This time, I will listen to fellow Blue Feather's arrangement and don't let I suffer a loss. Ah! Taoist Blue Feather laughed and clapped. We came to Ardent Fire Mountain to repay the old affection of the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. Since fellow Zhang said so, how can this old man let you suffer a loss? There were many disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain that followed the Fire Qilin to the Jianghu Peak. Other than Hua Pengfei, the majority of the disciples had come. They followed behind the Fire Qilin and were all whispering to each other. Their faces were filled with excitement as if they had already seen the Fire Qilin obtain the position of sect master. As for the Fire Qilin, after talking to Xiao Hua and Taoist Blue Feather, he was somewhat depressed. He led everyone through the layers of restrictions and arrived in front of a small mountain peak. Unsurprisingly, this mountain was also crimson in color. However, it was a little short. On the opposite side of the mountain, there were 2 other mountains that were similarly short, forming a tripod. The 3 mountains sandwiched a fire pond. This fire pond was calm, like a fiery red agate that was 100 miles in size. Senior, please wait a moment. Although they could already see the fire pond, the Fire Qilin still cautiously stopped in midair and said, this Jianghu Peak still has 1 last restriction. Wait for this junior to open it. Soon after, the Fire Qilin threw out a yellow talisman that contained blood essence. A series of muffled rumbling sounds came from the bottom of the mountain peak. It was as if a millstone was rolling up the mountain peak. Layers of scarlet flames poured down from the top of the mountain until the flames covered the entire mountain peak. A rarely seen heat wave rushed out from the mountain peak. The nearby space slightly swayed, as if it was somewhat distorted. After the heat wave, scattered fluctuations rushed out like raindrops. Wherever the fluctuations went, sparks flew everywhere. After a full meal, the fluctuations gradually thinned out and disappeared. A powerful aura mixed with heat seeped out from the fire pond and rushed into the sky. Hiss. Even someone as strong as Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air upon seeing this aura. He secretly cried out, "This is the aura of a fire attribute soul. Could it be that a soul was sealed under the fire pond?" But, thinking of this, Xiao Hua suddenly looked at Reverend Blue Feather and came to a realization. That year in the Xiankong Pavilion of Haoming City, the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain once said that they had an incomplete soul of an 8th stage spirit beast. This Reverend Blue Feather wanted to make a deal with the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain and use the soul of the 8th stage spirit beast to repair their spirit weapons. However, the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain wanted an innate jellyfish, but this Reverend Blue Feather didn't have one. Could it be that this is the soul of the 8th stage spirit beast? If that's the case, then I can explain why Adept Blue Feather insisted on interfering in the matters of Ardent Fire Mountain. Senior. Just as Xiao Hua was pondering, the Fire Qilin spoke again. Inside the formation is a forbidden area of my blazing fire mountain, and it's called Zhurong Hall. It said that this place is an ancient ruin. Oh, I remember that Senior Blue Feather had also been to the Xiankong Pavilion in Haoming City. This place is similar to the Xiankong Pavilion, but it's a little damaged. Adept Blue Feather raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, I remember that the Xiankong Pavilion is an imitation of the Void Palace, and there are mysteries of the Great Tao inside. Could it be that your Zhurong Hall also has such mysteries? The Fire Qilin smiled apologetically and said, I'm not sure about this. After all, my cultivation is shallow and I can't see anything. However, the interior of this hall is a little strange, so it's better for seniors to be careful. According to my 3 great-grandfathers, they don't dare to walk around carelessly inside. And I understand. Adept Blue Feather casually replied, and then looked at the restriction that had just been opened. His expression was a little uncertain because his divine sense couldn't penetrate the restriction, so he couldn't see what was inside. However, after hearing the Fire Qilin's words, the 3 mountain peaks and the fire pond he saw just now were most likely illusions. Sure enough, after the Fire Qilin passed through the restriction, they also saw 3 mountain peaks, but the scenery was completely different. On top of the mountain peaks were rugged rocks of strange shapes, and each rock was larger than an ordinary hill. There were some strange runes between the rocks, and they looked not only old but also broken. The runes flickered with a dark red light, as if the energy waves that had rushed out from them had come from these runes. However, this wasn't the worst. As soon as everyone entered the restriction, their gazes were immediately attracted by a majestic hall on top of the mountain. This hall was simple and unadorned, and it looked extremely large, as if it covered the sky and the mountain peaks. What welcomed them was a vermilion door. The door was extremely large, and the pillars beside it were also extremely tall. Although the door was half closed, the space it revealed was enough for a dozen people to enter at the same time. On top of the door was a similarly large plaque, but this plaque was already broken, and the words couldn't be seen clearly. Only the flame-like patterns on the edges of the plaque could be seen flickering. As everyone flew closer to the door, a powerful and intimidating aura was emitted from the door, as if a huge monster was opening its mouth and inviting its guests to enter. Senior. The Fire Qilin landed in front of the door and smiled apologetically. This is one of the 3 doors of Zhurong Hall. We can't fly in and we can only walk in from the ground. Reverend Blue Feather nodded. Guests should follow the host's wishes. You lead the way and this old man will follow behind. The Fire Qilin entered Zhurong Hall first, and Reverend Blue Feather and Xiao Hua followed behind. After entering the hall, what entered everyone's eyes was another simple hall, and the furnishings and decorations inside were much larger than usual. The Fire Qilin didn't stay in the hall for long, and it flew straight into the hall. After passing through a few halls, the fire aura gradually grew stronger, and there were traces of fire in the hall. Moreover, there were already some fire shadows on the left side of the hall, and there were also layers of light and shadow in front of the hall, as if there was a real fire burning. In the end, everyone walked into a damaged hall. Instead of calling this hall a hall, it was more like a platform. This was because the hall had already collapsed. Above the roof of the hall was a greenish-white sky. The floor of the hall was filled with huge cracks, and the abnormally large benefactors were lying on the ground. What was special was that at the front of the hall, where the hull was torn apart, all the cracks were rolling downwards. It looked as if a huge rock had fallen from the sky and caused the hull to collapse again. Xiao Hua and the others walked to the other side of the hall, where the hole had been torn apart. Looking down, they saw a bottomless abyss, with smoke lingering in the abyss. Layers of flames rushed out from the bottom of the abyss without restraint, rushing into the sky and into the dome of heaven. The abyss was about 10 miles wide, and there were some faint red lights flashing in it. Waves of obscure fluctuations rushed out from the red lights, and obviously there was a powerful restriction formation at the bottom. The flames couldn't block everyone's sight. They looked at the bottom of the abyss, then raised their eyes to the opposite side. Through the flames, they could clearly see that there were also 2 collapsed halls, but the floor of the hall was slightly smaller than the floor under everyone's feet. At this moment, there weren't any figures in these 2 halls, only broken fences and dilapidated walls. The fire Qilin stopped, pointed at the abyss and said, "Senior, below this abyss is the fire pond, and above the fire pond is a layer of restriction formation. According to my 3 great-grandfathers, this restriction formation is one with Zhurong Palace, but due to some accident, Zhurong Palace was broken, and a flaw appeared in the restriction formation, which allowed them to use the power of the restriction formation to set up their magic formation. Of course, this magic formation was also created by comprehending the restriction formation of Zhurong Palace, and is not an ordinary magic formation." Reverend Blue Feather slightly nodded and casually responded, but didn't comment. Next to him, Na had already begun to transmit his voice to Huo Pengfei. "Senior, this is the seal that this junior was talking about earlier. This junior has tried to break it several times. Every time I tried, an extremely powerful counterattack force would be generated from the seal. It is far beyond what this junior can withstand. Therefore, this junior does not dare to act rashly." "What's the secret technique that the fire Qilin mentioned?" Reverend Blue Feather's lips slightly moved as he asked, "Why can't this old man see anything special about it? Junior doesn't know about this." Huo Pengfei looked around, then lowered his head and transmitted his voice. "Junior has only heard about it from the 3 great-grandfathers of Blazing Fire Mountain when they were still alive. Junior hasn't been here before, and only after receiving Senior's message did I sneak in. This so-called secret technique, Junior doesn't know about it at all. You can be considered the direct descendant of the 3 great-grandfathers of Blazing Fire Mountain, so how come you don't even know about this secret?" Reverend Blue Feather's words were somewhat directed at Huo Pengfei's heart. Sure enough, Huo Pengfei fiercely replied, "Senior is right. The Fire Qilin's bloodline isn't as pure as this junior's, but he has received the love of the 3 great-grandfathers of Blazing Fire Mountain. Therefore, his position is far above this junior's. Senior, look at his indecisive appearance. How can he be a good sect master? If this junior was in his position, it would be impossible for the situation of Blazing Fire Mountain to become like this." "Don't worry." Reverend Blue Feather laughed. "This time, this old man will first help the Fire Qilin become the sect master, then I'll suggest you to become the vice sect master. After a period of time, you will be able to ascend to the position of sect master." "Many thanks, Senior." Huo Pengfei found it inconvenient to bow, but his tone was still respectful. No matter if it was Huo Pengfei or Reverend Blue Feather, they would never have dreamed that Xiao Hua had heard every single word of their conversation. Poor Fire Qilin, how could he have known that he had been plotted against by a disciple of his sect and a senior of his sect? He looked at the opposite side, then turned around and respectfully said to Xiao Hua and Reverend Blue Feather, "Two seniors, this junior has already sent Lu Hua's message to Huo Ferong and Huo Luan, informing them that the battle will continue as usual. The time of the battle will be tomorrow. Two seniors, please take a rest here and wait for Huo Ferong and Huo Luan to enter Zhurong Palace tomorrow morning. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward.